What is your special cooking secrets that few people know? Don't cook a new recipe if you want to impress people. Cook with the same recipe many times until you're confident you can deliver good results. Then use the recipe. I used to always over-salt my food if I found it a bit bland, but then I read somewhere to use lime juice instead, and it really does brighten up the flavors. I use better than bouillon to add flavor to many of the dishes I make. I keep jars of the chicken, beef, and veggie flavors in the fridge to use as needed. I use the beef flavor in pretty much anything that has ground beef. A tablespoon per pound when cooking the meat gives it so much more flavor than using just salt. If a dish tastes bland, it might need acid, not salt. A dash of vinegar or lime juice should be added before you add more salt. If you want to make a crisp and fresh salad, soak the vegetables in cold water for about 10 minutes before using. The recipe on the back of the Toll House chocolate chip bag. Follow it to the letter. Everyone thinks I have the best of the best chocolate chip cookies. MSG is not the villain. Use it sparingly. I use carbonated water in pancakes. If you set a timer and then take a nap, you can create a horrible smell that won't go away for years. When I cook pasta, I boil water in barely enough water to cover the pasta, and I use correspondingly less salt, but I stir it for the first couple of minutes to prevent the pasta from sticking together. I do this because the resulting pasta water is really starchy, and this starchy pasta water works great for thickening sauces and emulsifying oil-based sauces. Boiling your pasta in much less water also means the water comes to a boil much faster because there's less of it to boil. For some of my pasta dishes, I cook the pasta, risotto style, where all the pasta water gets absorbed or boiled off. The resulting concentration of starch is particularly useful for emulsifying in oils. I do spaghetti aglio e olio this way, and it turns out great. Okay, this is coming from a professional chef who specializes in baking. So listen up. If you cook anything cake-like and the ridge of the pan is higher than what the thing rose to, then you can add a layer of icing immediately after it comes out of the oven. Yes, it'll melt, but then the texture will change to a midway point between ganache and normal icing after it's cooled back down again. Also, the seal it creates is so strong that it preserves the moisture of the thing underneath. Perfect for making brownies that aren't hard as rocks, like most people's, especially because, after they've cooled, if you cut the brownies up, wrap them individually in plastic wrap, and then freeze them, then they'll have retained enough moisture and crumbliness to end up with a taste and texture that's nearly indistinguishable from an ice cream sandwich. Try it if you don't believe me. I often add a little sugar to stir-fries to balance the flavor, especially with dishes that contain a lot of vegetables. To make grilled chicken more tender and delicious, marinate the meat in salt water for about 30 minutes before grilling. If you're baking and want something to be really tender but stable, like a cake, try reverse creaming. Instead of creaming your butter and sugar and then adding in ingredients, add your softened butter, or shortening or what have you, to your flour mixture first. Essentially, it limits the development of the gluten, which is what can make baked goods tough. It's a good way to closely mimic store-bought mixes while still being homemade. If making bread from scratch, always knead the dough. It's super easy to overknead with mixers. You can sense when your dough is actually ready by hand instead of guessing. Makes a world of difference. Another baking tip: have a spray bottle of just water on hand to squirt into your oven before putting in your baked goods. The added moisture almost always improves the texture. If you're cooking a Latin American dish, add Mexican oregano. It's different from your usual oregano and the flavor profile is earthy, warm, and slightly spicy. If you want to eat sauerkraut and you're an American, rinse your kraut first. Our kraut in America is way over vinaigrated compared to the real German stuff. I have plenty more too. I'm a trained professional baker and I love to cook. So if you have questions for your baked goods, please feel free to ask. Parmesan rind in your tomato sauces, stews, etc. It gives a little flavor boost. Anchovy paste cooked in with your aromatics is fantastic. It gets nutty and delicious. Cottage cheese in pancake batter. My late grandfather always did this and his pancakes were the absolute best. It doesn't taste or feel like cottage cheese, but it makes the pancakes fluffy and gives a bit of delightful creaminess. I have extremely fond memories of being young and having breakfast at my grandparents' house where his pancakes were the main attraction. Add food coloring to your food, or turmeric, to make people not want to eat your food when they see it in the fridge. Unless you're my grandma, who saw a bright orangey yellow gloppy tuna salad in the fridge and went, "Time to scoop this with my bare hand onto my bologna sandwich." Don't be like grandma. Clean as you cook. When cooking in a frying pan, don't turn whatever you're cooking unless it moves around freely when you wiggle the pan. If it is still stuck to the bottom, that side isn't done yet. It'll free up naturally once the crust has formed. Always let meat rest for at least 5 minutes after cooking. This helps the meat retain its juices, making it more tender and delicious.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.